Hey, Saddleback Berlin. Pastor Tony here with an update on the situation in Ukraine, but even more about the situation that we currently face in Berlin. In the past 2 weeks, I talked to a lot of people in and outside of our church. I talked to people who are concerned or even afraid that this war might escalate and become a more continental war. And Germany and Berlin would be part of that as well. I talk to people who have the time and energy and the willpower to start serving, but they don't know where to start. I talk to people who are already serving at the central bus station or the central train station. And so they shared with me what they are experiencing over there. We also got in touch with former members of ours that are Ukraine nationals who live in the US because we wanted to know if their families, if their relatives are safe, and if there is anything that we can do to help them. Today I met with about 15 pastors, American pastors mostly, to talk about how can we support each other? How can we help each other? What is every one of us doing? What kind of ministries do we offer and things like that to coordinate each other. And so I wanted to focus on 4 questions that kind of came out of all these talks. The first one is, do we need to be afraid? The second question, what is the situation in Berlin right now? The third question, how can you or your small group get involved and serve refugees from Ukraine right now? And the last one, what could be our role as Saddleback Berlin, as a church, in this situation? And so let's start with the first question. Do we need to be afraid? The command, do not be afraid, appears in the NIV translation of the Bible 70 times. And that does not even include the different variants such as fear not or do not fear. And so there are several interesting things about this. First of all, the Bible isn't saying that there is nothing scary and that's why you don't need to be scared. Now, we're far away from that. We know that life is scary, and especially right now, the situation that we face, fear seems to be a very appropriate response to all of that. And so this is not what the Bible tells us. The Bible tells us, do not be afraid, because we know who is in charge. Because we know that we have a God that gets involved in all of this and that gives us protection. And we can see this because the command, do not be afraid, more often than not is followed by an action that God is or will be taking. And so let me give you a couple of Bible verses that show you what I mean. In Exodus 14:13, it says, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. In Deuteronomy 3:22, we can read this, do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. In Joshua 10:8, we read, do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you. And one verse that I personally like very much is from Luke 12:32. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Notice that do not be afraid is not a suggestion. God doesn't say it's up to you if you're afraid or not, just choose whatever you want. It is a command. He is giving an instruction on how to approach the circumstance and the life we live in right now. And with so many frightening situations constantly popping up in our lives right now, just remember that we are still in a pandemic. I don't think it's a coincidence that God has given this command so many times throughout Scripture. We need to be reminded time and time again, do not be afraid. We need to hear it over and over again, do not be afraid. We need it pounded in our hearts and minds, do not be afraid. And so my challenge to you is to start believing it. Do not be afraid. Sometimes in church, we sing a song that features this text: if God is for us, who can be against us? And so this is my message for you. This is why we don't need to be afraid of this situation. And so this brings me to the second question: what is the situation in Berlin right now? There were more than 2 million people who left Ukraine. More than 1 million went to Poland. And a statistic from yesterday said that more than 80,000 arrived in Germany. But everyone that I'm talking to says that it's way more than 80,000. There are right now thousands of refugees from Ukraine arriving in Berlin via bus or train. There is a lot of need. And I can't give you a very objective view on all of the situation, on what's going on in Berlin, because to be honest, there is none. It's overwhelming to a lot of organizations. It's overwhelming to our city government. And to think that there is something like an objective look on all of that, that's not possible. But what I can give you is a short report from just my own neighborhood. Just 5 minutes away from my home, there is the Central Arrival Center for Refugees. And so usually every person that seeks asylum in Berlin needs to go there. And they have rooms for 1,000 refugees. And every day now, they are overwhelmed because there are more than 1,000 refugees arriving at this facility every day. And so the churches in my neighborhood started to build shelters in church buildings and pretty much in all other facilities that are big enough to host shelters. And they just yesterday built new tents that are heated very close to the arrival center. And you can really feel and you can see how overwhelming the situation is, but also how great the hearts of the people in my neighborhood are to start serving, to start hosting refugees. Our city government is currently building a new arrival center for Ukrainian refugees at the old airport in Tegel that can host up to 10,000 people. It will need some more days or even weeks for that to happen. I can give you a lot of more information and details on all of this situation, but I think this is enough for now. You get the picture. This is a struggle. This is a challenge for all of us in Berlin. And I am very pleased to see so many churches getting involved in all of this. And I'm also very pleased to see that there are people in our church who signed up for our Ukraine relief team, people that are with us for 8 years, but also people that are with us for just 2 weeks because they want to help, they want to serve, they want to be informed, and they want to find ways to serve refugees in Berlin. I want to give you one story, one thing that happened today, so that you can understand a little bit what happens right now. 5 minutes before I met pastors to talk about the situation in Ukraine, I received an email from someone in Romania, from a Pentecostal church in the city of Cluj-Napoca. He found my contact on on the internet. He basically found Saddleback Berlin online, and so he emailed me and he said there is a family of Ukraine refugees on the way to Berlin. They will arrive 5 minutes before midnight. They don't have a place to stay and they don't have any contact in Berlin. Are you able to help? And so I contacted someone from our Ukraine relief team who serves at the central bus station where they arrive as a driver. And he immediately said, I can pick them up. He has to get up very early tomorrow morning, but he said, I will go there and I will pick them up and I will drive them wherever they can find a place to stay. And he gave me the number of the housing team that is currently serving at the central bus station. There is a team of 7 to 8 volunteers who are trying to find accommodation, maybe hotels or hostels, maybe private accommodation for everyone who arrives there. And so I informed them about this family. They registered them, and 10 minutes later, they found a private accommodation in Berlin for them. And so I was able to report to this contact in Romania, let them know, hey, there will be someone waiting for them. And there will also be a place for them to sleep in the night. This is something that it's just so amazing to see on many different levels, because involves people in our church who raised their arms and started serving. It involves volunteers in our city that serve with other organizations, and it involves people who are willing to open their homes to host refugees. And so this was a very encouraging story for me today, and I believe this is the kind of story that we will hear more and more often. And so this brings me to the third question. How can you or your small group serve refugees from Ukraine? And there are many ways to serve, and I will not give you a lot of specific places to go. I will put some links under this video that you can check out. But I want to give you 4 ways to serve, and maybe one of them is for you. The first one is to pray specifically. A few days ago, I read about an orphanage in Odessa that had to be evacuated because of the attacks, and 120 orphans are on their way in 5 buses to come to Berlin. They already arrived, I assume. And so I had to stop, and I just had to take a moment to pray for these 120 orphans, for safe travels, for a place to find refuge in Berlin. And you can do the same. We can see so many news on social media, in our newspaper, on the news. And if you see something that really goes to your heart, just take a moment, a few seconds, maybe a minute, to pray for that specific situation. And of course, also pray for peace to be restored and for wisdom for leaders, and so on. The second way we can serve is to give wholeheartedly. What is needed right now is a lot of goods, and I will post a link down there that leads to a website that shows you what kind of items, what kind of goods are needed at the central station or at Südkreuz or at Ostbahnhof or the central bus station. And you can see what items are needed, you can buy them, and you can get them over there. You can also ask in shelters in your neighborhood if there is anything that you can donate, any goods that you can donate. And of course, you can donate money as well. And I will post a link down there as well to our own Saddleback Relief Ministry. Saddleback's Relief Ministry is in contact with Ukraine churches, with Polish churches. They have a team right now in Poland examining the situation, trying to find out how Saddleback can help churches in Poland to serve refugees. And so all of the money that is spent for this Ukraine relief to our relief ministry will go to ministries and churches in Poland and Ukraine so that they can serve refugees from Ukraine in a better way. The third way to serve is to serve humbly in love. And this is based on Galatians 5:13, where it says this: You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. Do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. We are very privileged to live in the freedom we live right now here in Berlin. And there are people arriving that are looking for shelter, looking for refuge, because they were no longer free in their own country, because there was a war going on, and they have to, and they are afraid of death or harm. And so the freedom that we have here in Berlin should motivate us to serve others in a very humble way, to do maybe even dirty tasks in homeless shelters. And I served not in refugee shelters. I served in homeless shelters and refugee shelters before. It is a very difficult work. And so I want to encourage you, if you start serving somewhere, make sure that you do it as a team. Make sure that you find at least one other person to go with you. This is to protect yourself, because there will be situations that are very difficult, very emotional, and it's good to have someone to talk about this. It's good to have someone to hold you afterwards. It's good to have someone to pray afterwards. And so I want to encourage you to do that. If you don't have anyone that can serve with you, get in touch with us, and we get you together with people who are already serving anywhere in Berlin. And the fourth way you can serve, and that is probably the most difficult one for many of you, is to open up your homes for Ukrainian refugees. And I think I said it at the beginning, there were many refugees staying in Berlin just for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, until they get a train or a bus anywhere else in Berlin, because they have relatives or friends they want to go to. And so open up your home does not mean that you will have refugees in your home for years to come. It can be even just for days, and that is already very helpful. And so think about all of this. Think about these different ways to serve Ukrainian refugees. If you want to get involved, please get in touch with us. If you already serve somewhere in our city, I want to encourage you to get in touch with us as well. Let us know where you serve and what are you doing over there, so that if someone likes to get involved as well, we can connect them with you so that you can serve together. Let us know where you're serving, because we want to pray for you as well, and we want to find out, is there anything else that we can do to support the facility or the ministry where you're currently serving. We will definitely not be able to fulfill all of the requests and to get involved very much. I'm pretty much sure about that, but we will always take a moment to pray for the situation and to find out if God moves us in a certain direction. And this leads me to the last question I want to talk to you, and that is, what could be our role as a church in this situation? And to be honest, I'm not sure about that. But every day, with every talk that I have, with every more information that I get from people in and outside of our church, it seems to me that God has prepared a special role for our church in this. We have connections to Eastern Europe, to churches in Poland, and so on. And the story that I told you about this Ukrainian family that we got to know about before they even arrived in Berlin, that is something that might happen over and over. And we could be the kind of connection point for many families that want to come to Berlin, so that when they are on their way to Berlin, they don't need to be afraid. They don't need to be concerned about where do we sleep, where do we find shelter, where do we find food, because they know it's already taken care of, that there will be someone waiting for them and bringing them somewhere. And so this could be the role we play in this situation. Another role is something that we did a few years ago with Syrian refugees as well. Right now, what is needed is shelter, is food. It's like meeting basic needs. But in a few weeks from now, we will see that the needs are changing. People want to get connected. People want to have fellowship. People want to, kids want to be entertained and so on. And so this is something that we can involve in as well to rebuild community among refugees. Most of them have left their friends behind, relatives behind. Pretty much all of the families are separated now, with the men fighting at home and the mothers and kids fleeing to Poland or Berlin to find refuge. And so maybe this could be the role that we play as well in this situation, to help rebuilding communities and to go to shelters, to play with the kids, to get them connected to our kids, to really start to build strong relationships that are so often needed in situations like this, that are always needed in these kind of situations. And so while I don't know what role we will play in all of this, I do know that there are a lot of things that we can do as a church, and that God has prepared something in advance for us to do in this situation. And so I want to leave you with this, and I hope that you feel a little bit more informed and more encouraged right now with this situation. I hope that you will pray about getting involved in any of this. If you want to join our Ukraine relief team and help us to organize, to coordinate all of our actions, then please let me know. Send me an email to tony@saddleback.de or fill out an online connection card at saddleback.berlin/connect. If there is any other question about this situation, or you are concerned or afraid about this and you need to have a talk with someone, get in touch with us. We are here to help you. We are here to equip you for your service. We are here to pray for you. And so I want to leave you with that today. And I hope that you feel encouraged, and you really feel how powerful the churches are in Berlin, and how powerful the city of Berlin is, because there were so many people that stood up and help people in need right now. This is something that is incredibly encouraging for me to see, because this is what this city stands for. The city used to be a symbol for a division between East and West. But since 30 years, Berlin has become a city where the East meets the West, where we reach out to one another and where we build connections. And so right now, this is more visible than ever before. And so, pray for this situation, pray for us as a church, and reach out to us with any question that you might have. And once again, please check out the links that I will post under this video. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.